Welcome to the Performance Zone, ladies and gentlemen. David Martin and Pat Gross here with our extended special service here in the Performance Zone. And over the past few weeks, we've been talking about everything from focus to, oh gosh, we talked about people who haven't been asked. Have you ever been asked? That sort of thing. We started out with the original, or one of the beginnings, we talked about you can't start building on the 10th floor. And this week, we've got something I think might just fry your noodle. And this is an idea to give all credit where credit's due. Pat came up with this one on her own, but we've been talking about this for a while and knocking this idea around. And that is this. There is an accepted definition of an entrepreneur, but is that the correct definition? A lot of people have some ideas, and there's been a lot of commentary on that. And we've kind of come up with our own little, some tit for tat on some of that, because there are things that my personal experience is when you understand something better, and you instead of just throwing an accepted social label on it, when you understand it better, you can perform better, you can use it better, you're going to be more effective. And what we're talking about here in the Performance Zone, what Pat talks about in all her programs about strategic design of the businesses and business strategies, and whether it's from grant writing or in the corporate world, it's all about performance. And part of performance is being effective. So that's what we kind of want to do today. Is your definition of an entrepreneur? And we'd like to know what that is. So if you want to email us, contact us, let us know what your definition is. But right now, I'm going to turn this over to Pat, because she might, I'll just let her take it over from here. Pat, go ahead with you were talking about the definitions before we got started. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, okay. So really, why this is interesting to me is because actually my business is the business I own is a community entrepreneur, and we're working with the not-for-profit sector. And if you go with the standard definition of an entrepreneur, which is a bit somebody who's, well, again, there's nuances here, but basically the people who create businesses or new products or new services, but it's all about business. Okay. Now, for me, I have a different take on entrepreneur, and I'll explain it very, very shortly. But I work in the community sector with entrepreneurs. Hang on a minute. Yes, okay, not-for-profits are a sort of business structure, but they're not the businesses that we think of. So hang on a minute, there's a bit of a disconnect here. We're talking about a community entrepreneur, or even, out there, there's social entrepreneurs, all those things that they're sort of, it doesn't quite mix with the sort of like the business model we sort of instantly think of. So I sort of think about, well, why is this? Why am I so passionate about this? Well, entrepreneur, the word is actually it comes from French, and what I understand, it's broken down into entre and prendre. Now, French is a romantic language, and it's not 100% translatable directly into English.
Right.
So when you look at entre, it means between, and prendre means to take. Okay. Entre doesn't mean entree, which is to enter, which, if it was,
right.
If it was entree, then yes, I could see it being a startup. There would be no question.
Right.
But the key word there is entre, which means between. So, if you look at this from a different perspective, and yes, the definition of how people understand the word entrepreneur fits within the whole context. But basically, when you're looking at it with between and taking, it's like you're looking and you're out there looking for, you see the opportunities. So you can make that connection, taking the opportunity, and you're being that link with the connection.
That's right. Putting yourself between to connect.
Yes.
These. Yes.
Yes. Now there's plenty of research out there that talks about, entrepreneurs being innovators, risk takers. And that's basically what you're doing. I mean, I really, I think there's a definition that I really follow, which is about, looking out there, finding the opportunities, and then making those connections. Now that really, really resonates with me because this is a question around, are entrepreneurs born or entrepreneurs made? And it depends which foot you've got where you've got, which camp you've got the foot in. I say that you can make an entrepreneur, but they already have to have that within them. They have
So
to
in
have
other
the
words, in
confidence, the
that
ability
sense,
to take the risk.
you can reveal an entrepreneur.
You can reveal an entrepreneur. Yes.
Okay.
Society. On the recent conversation we had, David, you talked about entrepreneurs in a box.
Right.
And you find that as many people who may have resigned themselves to, I mean, we're brought up in a sort of like an 18th, 19th century industrial structure where we have to have jobs.
Right.
Before that, there was plenty of cottage industries out there, self-employed, whatever. But you can imagine all those self-employed people have been translated into working in an environment where you've got a job. Now, if you're somebody like me who had two really sort of interesting career paths, that the times I was really satisfied, and I've got a letter from one of my previous employees who basically said, Paddy's really good when she's left to her own devices. When she can take,
right.
And that's
don't put Pat in a box.
Exactly. And that's why I thrived. I had two really good career structures where I had the opportunity to look at, for me, what the policy direction was coming in the first instance from the European Union, because I worked in that sort of space, and in the second instance, government policy in Australia and how it affected community or the training organisations that I was in the government department, and I had the ability to help those organisations strengthen their capacity. Okay. But I would look to see what was coming, and then be able to marry it up with what was happening and build, get them to where they needed to be in front of the game. And in that, I had a good knack of being able to spot who in those organizations was the entrepreneur. Now, I always think, and this is going to the idea of an entrepreneur, to me, the classic entrepreneur, he's no longer with us, but it was a small community. And he would come out with these really dynamic ideas and he'd get people working and he'd get this stuff happening. But to this day, because we were the funding body and we realized that a lot of the accountability wasn't getting done, because that's not, the mindset. They just want
right.
They're the innovators. They just want to make things happen. You do need somebody behind with a dustpan and broom,
right,
mopping up the processes.
I'll worry about that later.
Yeah.
And I will say that has, can bite you in the butt sometimes. And just something is, I want to insert real quick here. And for those of you that, as you're listening to this, folks, understand this, because you notice that Pat said, identifying the entrepreneur in the organization, not in the business, not as the business owner. You can be a business owner and not be an entrepreneur. And you can be an entrepreneur and not be a business owner.
Yeah, you could be a frustrated entrepreneur.
Right. Well, you can be a frustrated. No, but I mean, we talked about this the other day too, about, so this is, and I want to throw that out there. We can come back and revisit it. I don't want to take it too much off the topic right now, but those are things that you're going to have to wrap your noodle around, because again, a lot of it is just about how people, again, when you understand the language, that's like one of my things right now in the world right now is the language. Everything means something else. I feel like we're living in a George Orwell novel with some of the way people are twisting the language, right? But when you understand, like one of the little trainings I did called the 7 Steps to Personal Mastery, I talk about, understanding the word decision. And decision comes from decidere, which is a Latin word, which means to cut off. So when you make a decision, you're cutting off other options. And my whole point was, when you understand the word from that context, or resolution. Resolution is a great word to use, because people do what every year around the 31st of December? They set these resolutions. But what does the word resolution come from? It comes from resolute, which means when you're resolute about something, you don't give up. right? You are, it's called, I'm going to the top of the mountain, or you're going to find me dead along the road on the side, on the way, but I'm not coming back. When you're resolute, you are, and people aren't resolute about their resolutions. So the whole idea of understanding the word, so by understanding what an entrepreneur truly is, and my belief is some of the things that Pat's touching on, when you understand it in that level, changes, it's a game changer in my opinion. So, sorry, go on.
No, that's perfectly fine. And I've got nothing against, people, these businesses out there who train entrepreneurs. I mean, what they're doing is they're helping them to bring out that and to step into their comfort zone of
Right.
risk, their comfort zone of fear. They'll step out of that comfort zone they've been given. But if you truly are that kind of person, you'll know that from other parts of your life.
Yeah.
You are, you'll always be that risk taker one way or another. It's like, it's like the 90-10 of Robert Kiyosaki, like you talk about the cash flow quadrant, you got 90% of people want a job, either in a job or bought by themselves a job as a small business, right? If you were made unemployed, and you could talk about it as much as you want before, and I could do this and I could do that, but when that decision's made for you, that's the test. That's the test. Are you strong enough? I remember I actually made myself unemployed. I made a decision to
Right.
make myself unemployed. I went into business, but I do remember it was New Year's Eve. It was Sydney, the fireworks and all that. And we were sort of like in this park around the harbour. And my brother and my brother-in-law, we were talking, it was just before I did it. And I was talking about, this is it. Because I've been thinking about it for a while. And I was procrastinating. I don't know what was holding me back. I'll touch that on that one in a minute. I remember my brother and my brother-in-law, two decent jobs, basically saying, "Oh no, you'll never do it. You can't do it." Blah 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 blah. That made
right. Yeah, he knows how that went now, right? But anyway, I can see that being one of the motivating factors.
Yeah, and look, the other thing is, as I said, when you really sort of find yourself in that position where you're unemployed, you'll know yourself. You'll either be, your only means for living is I've got to get a job. This is what qualifies me. I've got to get a job. You're in the system. Or you might be somebody who's just ready now to actually sort of make things happen for yourself, what's inside you. And that's right. When these trainers can come in, etc. But I know for me, look, and again, if you listen to the entrepreneurs who they talk about their stories, how they have businesses, as I said, because there are a lot of business owners who are entrepreneurs, full stop.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that that's the definition of being an entrepreneur. And I just remember that.
So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is like, you can, and here's the thing I want to clarify before we continue. This is not about being good or bad, right or wrong. This is just, it just is. I mean, business owners can be that person who's systems oriented, who likes a system, follows a franchise, for example. That doesn't necessarily, they're looking for that. I need systems, I need numbers, I need predictability, I need this. Whereas the entrepreneur is a little bit more seat of the pants. It's kind of like my Taekwondo instructor, when I was training, there were two brothers that were on our team. One was he was a little bit bigger. The other one was a little smaller, and the bigger one was a little wild. And he said, he said, we'll call him Michael. He said, Michael, if he sees 10% of a chance, he goes for it. He tries, he takes the shot. The other one, he waits till he has 90%. He was more of a counter fighter, but he was much more precise. The other one was a little bit more wild. And you could see that as it played out in their lives as well. That's like the entrepreneur. If he sees a 10% chance, he'll go for it. The business owner, the systems guy, sees, I need to have the predictability, and I'm willing to accept a 10% loss because I got a 90%, the numbers work out 90% of the time. And again, that's not good or bad. It's not, if you're, we're not saying that you're better if you're an entrepreneur. We're just trying to understand the difference of where you are, because when you understand where you are, you can function better. Now, the entrepreneur, you can also, I said this earlier, you can be an entrepreneur and not be a business owner, because you can look at that. And Pat, you were an example of that when you worked in the academic world. Yeah, they left when they left you alone. You went out and did your work and got it done, and were creative and created things and built all kind of things. So you could be a corporate guy, and maybe you're in charge of a team. And if a good manager is going to say, just let him go do what he needs to do. Right. That was my last corporate gig, which I only had 2 jobs as an adult anyway, because I've been that since I was a kid. I'm driving to go do my own thing. She was a brilliant manager, because she said, let David do what David does. Because at the end of the day, I'm representing the company well, and we're producing numbers, right? We're putting up the numbers, we're getting the results, and that's part of it. But yeah, that I just want to clarify that for those of you that are listening, and that you don't have to be it's not like, well, I want to be an entrepreneur because that's the cool thing to be called as an entrepreneur, and that's better. No, it's not better or worse. It's not, good or bad. It just is. And again, the most important thing is understanding where you are and where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. That way you're going to function better. That's just, okay. My soapbox on that one is just, it's important that they understand that it's not about, like when people say, oh, I'm doing this workout versus that workout, or I'm eating this food. No, it's not about that. Just, if that works for you, do that.
Like when you think about an entrepreneur, if you don't know whether you're an entrepreneur or not, and you're sort of like, oh, you've got that entrepreneurial spirit inside you, to start with, look, there's a couple of things I can use from my own personal experience. And one of them is you'll get easily bored. If you get easily bored in what you're doing, I can remember, look, when we came to Australia, I left a really good job. It really sort of, again, that was developing in different directions for me. It was breaking new ground. I came to Australia and I ended up in a job a few pay grades below what I was capable of doing, shall we say. And I remember walking down the street in the morning, one morning, tears rolling down my eyes, wondering, is this what it's like to be working? People people going to jobs. I was so depressed. I couldn't see a way out. I was trapped in a job. It was an admin job. It was a finance job. It was, this was all rationale had gone out the window. The person inside me was trapped. So anyway, as it turned out, the opportunity came along and I found myself in a position where I could rebuild that position.
Right.
And then I took it to a different area. It was only when policy changed and then I was brought back into being more of a contract manager, rather than somebody going out there with the freedom to look at opportunities and bring them into the organizations that we supported. And then I started to get cynical. On hindsight, I was very unhappy. Now, it wasn't that I was deliberately unhappy. I was fundamentally unhappy. I was just saying, 6 months before I left my job, I was cleaning the office. I was cleaning everything out of the office. Not that I made a deliberate attempt to clean the office.
Right.
It was more that I was gone 6 months or 12 months before I actually left.
Mentally, right. You were already checked out.
I'd already checked out. And after I cleaned the office, I was sick for about 2 months. So and then I went back to work, and I'd been procrastinating for some time. But so at some point I made the decision, and then I sort of got back to work, and within a couple of days handed in my resignation. I'd done whatever I was going to do now. It was up to me. It was freedom. Right. It was me taking the risks. It was that sort of thing. So you know yourself, if there's something not quite right, the way that you're fitting in with a job or something like that, then maybe you might be looking for a side hustle but are you really looking for that side hustle? Why are you looking for that side hustle? Is it
Right.
really to compensate, your lifestyle, or is there something else driving you?
Are you trying to satisfy an inner void or something like that to get that? Yeah, and that's
Yes.
see, that's the thing when it's so interesting that you bring that example up, because when I first started getting into direct selling in business and that side of things, one of our mentors said, most people will tell you that they want more money. And he said they do, but that's not their motivator. And he talked about like what drives people. And he went over things. He said some people, yeah, they need money because maybe they need to put a kid through college, or they have to pay off debt, or they have to, just augment their living, whatever it may be. He said, but there'll be some things people, they lack creativity. They lack fun, right? There's no fun in their life. There's no excitement. There's no adventure. There's no, because when they have this competitive nature, and there's nothing satisfying their competitive nature. Like, and we've talked about this since I started the CrossFit thing last year, right? I'm a competitive guy. I've been a competitive guy my whole life. When I was little, I was always competing with my older brothers. I wanted to beat them, and I was the little brother that would get thrown across the room when they're like, "Leave me alone." He was 13 years older than I was, right? I was trying to, I'm going to wrestle you and fight you, and he'd throw me across the room. But I was that competition. Then in martial arts, as an athlete, I competed. Then later as a coach, and then when I stopped coaching from a competitive standpoint, that void started to hit. Now, coaching is in a business that works, but now I'm filling that. I'm satisfying that urge, that competitive urge to go. So I don't take it out on my daughters when we're playing card games and stuff like that. But to be fair, they're pretty brutal when it comes to playing Uno or something. I mean, I think they get that. Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. They're both pretty competitive. But yeah, it could be competition. It could be just the fun in your life. It could be just to get out and connect with different people. It could be, like my friend James, just the magic of putting together deals. He loves to put together deals. And of course, he makes money, but he said some deals are better than others. My friend Scott found himself, he's an entrepreneur. Scott will go out and do the thing that nobody else thought was, why would you do that? People like, look at that. Not only did he start as a salesman with that organization in that industry, now he owns the company, right? And he's totally made it, streamlined it, and done all kinds of things with it. But it's in the pre-need. Do you guys have pre-need services down there? Like you pay for your funeral in advance?
You can do.
Yeah, he has a company. It's an insurance-based product, but he went out and did that, and people thought that's nuts and that's ridiculous. But Scott loves being of service, and he loves that. And he said and you can tell, because it's not always about the money, right? People think entrepreneur, you're just about the money. No, sometimes it's about the chase. It's about the deal. It could be about service. Scott is totally about, because I've seen him and met his customers where he would tell me, he said that deal was a less expensive deal and I got less of a commission, but it was the right deal for them. And that's what motivates him, is what can I do to get this person the best thing for them, regardless of how much money he makes. So it might be that, but it could be anything. So you can, you could do these personality tests. You could do like the Kersey-Briggs temperament sorter. You could do the Myers-Briggs. You could do any one of that. We've been going over a lot of that lately in some of our groups. And, you'll see, again, once you understand where you fall in this line, folks, you understand, again, it's not about right or wrong. It's about where are you going to be most effective? How can you be most effective, as opposed to trying to put a square peg in a round hole? That's to me, this is a conversation that I'm sure will pop up again, because there's some people out there. No, I looked at the dictionary and the dictionary says an entrepreneur is someone who starts a business. Well, it could be. That's not.
Yeah,
that's
it could
not
be.
The be all and end. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, it could be. We're not just we're not dissing it. What we're saying is, if you look at the actual wording, entre, between, pondra, take, look at it in that sort of like a sort of a romantic sort of viewpoint, and you're taking things, you're taking things over here, and you're creating that link between that and over here. So
Right.
you might be looking at the resources and you look at the future opportunities. So that is really what marks an entrepreneur. Just going back to what I was saying about, when I talk about people who find themselves unemployed, and then that's the point when they realize that, when you sort out the wheat from the chaff, when you find those who've got to get a job, or those who say there's another way of doing this that I'm going to enjoy. Another way of doing that, I can put, sort of put that into my context is that, and again, taking risks and stuff like that, and making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes.
Oh,
There was a point when when my business went really down, just about gone. Sort of like I ended up sort of having to go on unemployment, and I ended up seeing a psychologist, and because that's the sort of thing, and she said, and I was applying for jobs. Didn't like it, but I was applying for jobs.
right.
And one day she just turned around to me. She said, "Give up." She said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Stop looking for jobs and rebuild the business." So I did.
Well,
what I'm trying to say is, I wasn't in that space. I was in this space. Just go for it. You're going to fall, you're going to fail, but that ain't going to stop you. You're back up again.
right. It's kind of like when you said that earlier, this popped into my head. It's like, say you lose your job and it's like, well, I need a job or I need an income. And
Yes.
that's a different space. And you've certainly,
Yes.
landed on that. And again, there's nothing wrong with wanting a job. We're not dissing on anything. We're just trying to, you could, you might be the kind of person that says, it might take you longer to get there, because here's one of the things too. Like, I love when people look at, well, I saw this woman and she started her own business, and in 90 days she was already earning $20,000 a month in income. And it's like, okay, that's great. That's not you. That may be you. You might do it in 1 month. We don't know. Everybody's different. And one of the ways it was explained to me years ago, I thought this was brilliant. When you're starting your own bit, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or going into that space, it's like you're going to a dance. And the cost of the dance to get in the dance is $10. It costs you $10 to get. There's no way you're getting into the dance without paying $10. That's it. That's the price. And then people say, but I saw Pat, and Pat only paid $3 to get into the dance. It's good. No, Pat paid $10, but she paid $3 at the door, but she paid $7 over the last 10 years. So people, you don't know where people have been paying their $10. They've been paying it all along the way. That's why they're having that's why it seems like, oh, well, she just started her business and everything went so well and easy for her. You all got to pay. You've got to pay the price. You've got to put in the time, the knowledge. You're going to make the mistakes. You're going to do that. That's called paying the price. In the direct selling industry, I used to look at that and I'd see, I was busting my tail to earn an income, and I was doing good. I was doing well, but then I'd see, and I would, here I am a year in, and I'm earning this much money. And this young girl over here, because it was always a young girl, and she'd come up and do stuff, she'd walk across the stage and pick off the $100,000 bonus and be like, I just got started and I didn't even know what I was doing. And I just went out and I got it, and you're like, how do they do that? And then again, she'd already, somewhere along the line, she put in her time. It wasn't luck.
Yes,
Once in a while it will be dumb luck and people will do that. But oftentimes everybody pays the price. You don't get into the dance without putting it forth. So understand that. Now, can you short circuit? Can you cut off the learning curve sometimes? Sure. You can go to someone like Pat. You can look at her strategic planning and strategic development and say, if I know this now before I get started, if I have a template by which to put this stuff in place, then it's going to make your life, it's not going to make it, it's going to make it more simple, perhaps not easier. You still have to do the work. It's not just, well, I got Pat's template, but it's going to shave off a lot of time for you to learn, because you're going to have things in place that you otherwise might not know you need. Okay. Because there are things like that you can do, right? You can understand about the mindset, right? We can go through the temperament sorter and do the personality profiles, and you can understand where you are. And again, keep in mind, it's not about right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse. It's about understanding where you are in this process, understanding where you are in your life, what's your personality, and the personality things, you can't cheat them. If you do them, I'm sorry, guys. I have tried. I'm a smart guy. I'm trained. You can't outthink the questions. The questions put you right where you're supposed to be. And it's really sometimes humbling realizing, wow, I thought I was more over here, but I guess I'm more over here. And that again,
Oh, God.
yeah.
Yeah. When I did the MI's big, I turned out to be the CEO. That's all right.
Yeah. I mean, I like it when there was a guy, he did a personality training, and he broke it into 4 categories, and people had done it with the magic of colors. You know, Jerry Clark did his, the magic of colors. The other guy called his the animal factor, and he called him, you know, the yellow koalas. They're the real nice ones. And then below them are the green, what did he call it? The owl, right? That had to have all the information, the accountants, the engineers, the real systems people. And the top right quadrant was the blue monkey. And it had, you know, that was the high producers and highly effective, but the bottom right was the lion. Everybody wanted to be a lion. It's like, not everybody's a lion. I knew when I read that, I said, I'm a monkey. I'm a blue. I get that. The way, based on their programs, understand I'm a high producer, but I'm the gregarious, fun guy. I talk to everybody at a party, but I don't have the guy at the lion. Sometimes the CEO is the lion. Typically, they're more direct. They're good. That wasn't me. I admitted that. I could acknowledge I'm not a lion. I'm a monkey, which totally fits my personality anyway. But
well, picking up on that and referring to something like the E-Myth, I actually learned it from an anthropologist at a conference, but the E-Myth covers it as well, is this whole idea of, and it can exist in a person, it can exist in an organization, or it can exist amongst your colleagues in a network. Well, I'm going to give an example here, is the kind of person you are. If you're in charge of an organization, okay, in an organization, or even in the task of the day, you're going to have 4 levels. You're going to have the admin, you're going to have the technical, you're going to have the manager, and you're going to have the entrepreneur. Okay, there might be a little bit there that you have to take a risk of doing, no matter who you are. But I play around with this because I work with, and especially if you're working with community partnerships and you've got different managers coming together, or CEOs coming together. Okay, and you want to, and you look at the dynamics of their relationships. Or within an organization itself, if somebody leaves an organization, the community organizations tend to be, their direction follows the personality of the person at the top. Okay, yep. The same with businesses. And when that person leaves, somebody else comes along, everything changes. And you look at it and you're thinking, where is this person coming from? So you might have, I've seen this where, well, first of all, you might have the entrepreneur who comes along. Then they're dangerous if you put them in, and when organizations are at rock bottom, because you really need somebody to rebuild. But if you've come to that point and the organization's thriving and looking new directions, etc., an entrepreneur is going to bring that new inside, that refreshing new direction.
Right.
Okay. But they're going to need, as I said, they're going to need the right staffing, the right support structures behind them. So otherwise the organization falls over. Or you could have an entrepreneur, you could have a manager in the organization then, like they could have a partner who's the business manager. So they might go away and do what they want to do as the entrepreneur, but they've got a business manager supporting them. Right. Or you've got an organization that's run by somebody who's got management skills. And that's where you've got all your systems, all your procedures, etc. They just manage the business. You can't take it to the next level unless they empower somebody to do it, because their mindset is in managing the business. They'll grow the business, etc., but they're not going to take those huge risks. Or do something new, very new.
They're not the Elon Musks, right?
Then they're not the, or the Richard Bransons of this world. Then you've got the technician, and this is somebody who may actually, the technicians either start businesses. You might have a trader who decides to go on their own, or a lawyer, or even people like us, right? You know, you're
Right.
skilled at something. So you go out there and you start your business. But that's what you are. And I got plenty of examples from a partnerships toolbox I developed when I interviewed businesses that had been in partnerships in the past and they'd failed. And invariably, they'd been technicians partnering with technicians. So I had a couple of tradies, fencing tradies, I think they were, who got together. 10 months in, they realized that they didn't have the business skills.
Yes.
You know, they couldn't, so that's just an example there of, we see so often beauticians, hairdressers, they all fall into that technical.
Oh, auto
now,
mechanics.
If you're in an organization,
you know, guy's a great auto mechanic, opens his own store, you know, his own shop, and he can't get any business because he doesn't know how to run the business. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So they are technicians. They're not entrepreneurs, they're technicians. Okay. So, this is where people are going to shoot me now, but it's true.
No, but that's why I was getting to the point earlier of you've got to it's important to understand where you fit in the scale, right? And it's not about right or wrong. It's just understanding, well, if I'm this, then I need this to support me. I understand for myself, there are certain areas that I lack and they're just not my bailiwick, right? I mean, organization, that's why a lot of the tools, if you either need the people or the tools. Nowadays, there's a lot of automated tools that can help you, especially if you have that drive. But it's always good to have a team. It's always good to have a coach. It's always good to surround yourself with a circle, you know, a circle of people that can guide you and be a resource for you, because you're never in business truly by yourself. I love when people say, I'm in business by myself. No, you're not. You're in business with your customers. You're in business with your suppliers. You're in business with the providers. You know, business means you've got to be able to interact with others, and you have to know where you fit in that. Now, again, I understand I'm not an accountant. I don't have, that's,
no.
They're
in your team. There may be external organizations, they're in your team, but they're the technicians, they're technical side. Okay. Right. So, and then you've got the other thing about that is if you've got an organization, especially, you know, a structured organization with hierarchy, look, and I've been working with training organizations. If you've got somebody who goes up the ranks in your organization and then gets to that senior level, do they have the management skills, or are they the technician that's just got promoted? And I've seen it where organizations, the new manager, the new personnel CEO and person in charge is actually a technician who's come through the ranks. So they don't. That
is a subject and a topic that is so near and dear to my heart, because having been in sales a lot of my career, I would laugh when I would say they promoted this top salesman. They took him out of the field where he excelled and tried to make him a sales manager, right? In sports, you see somebody who was a great athlete and then he wants to be a coach, but he doesn't have the skills to coach. That's something you have. It's a different, now it doesn't mean that he can't coach, but he has to go back and learn the skills, because it's much more than just, well, do this exercise, do this, run this pattern, whatever. So that's actually, we could make that a show in itself, that in particular of understanding, you know, real
where you are, where you fit.
All right, well,
because we talked about the, you know, what defines an entrepreneur. Now we've got down to, you know, what defines a manager, a technician, and the other one is the admin. And again, I'm using from professional experience, not personal, but professional experience. And I sort of hinted earlier on about an organization that falls over. Okay, there was an organization that was falling over. So the person who took over was an admin person, because they were accountable to funding bodies, etc. Their responsibility was to make sure all the paperwork was in place. And at the same time, I'm thinking of another organization, same deal, falling over. A bean counter came on board. Responsible for, rather than keeping the doors open, they spent 3 months looking at the systems, about, you know, the administration of the systems. Okay. where they were, what they were doing financially. They got people to do it, but it was very much in admin. And in that circumstance, the organization just closed down. They had some money coming in, but it was too much for them.
Right.
Because they closed the doors, they didn't have the business coming through the door because they spent too much time in that admin frame, because the person who took over was an admin-minded person, not a management, a systems and process, an
Right.
admin. They were cleaning up. Same with that first organization. The similar sort of circumstance. What happened there was a technician took over after her and took it to the next level. She realized that she didn't have the vision sort of thing, and she brought somebody in. She stepped down and brought somebody in above her. So that in that circumstance, they actually understood those levels, and putting pride aside, actually brought somebody in who could manage at the top level. But I'm saying this other one here.
That's the exception, not the rule.
But I give you, but again, it was very, very mature of them. But I give you another one here. This is probably why you find some organization CEOs aside in favor of another skill set. But yeah, the other thing is that I was a good client of mine, been working with that organization for some time, but she's the entrepreneur. She is the entrepreneur in the organization. She was the CEO, but she was the entrepreneur as well.
Right.
She could see new opportunities coming in, and I worked with her because we worked together to dig in the money for those opportunities. But she ended up in a partnership situation with a colleague in another organization. They got on well on a personal level. But she came to me one day and she said, I'm so frustrated. I just don't know how we can work together here.
Right.
And I said to her, I know what your problem is. I said, you're an entrepreneur. She's a technician. When the entrepreneur figured out where she was coming from, it changed the game.
So awareness, understanding, knowing this stuff. So guys, well, Pat, here's what I want to do. Let's, because again, we could come back on this and go into further detail. What do you think we have? What do we have in store for next week? Have we decided yet?
Yeah, we did. I think this was something about letting the other person pay. That's got you thinking, hasn't it?
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, guys, this is actually one of our longer topics. This was great, but again, understanding this stuff, understanding where you fit in this whole chain of people and where you are. And again, this is not about being right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse, or any stuff like that. It's about being effective. And when you understand this and know where you are, now you can be more effective. You could be a technician and say, if you're smart enough, hey, I don't need to know this, but I can hire this person who does. And I can hire this person who does. Henry Ford was a classic example of that. We'll talk more about that another time. But if you want to reach out to Pat, you're on LinkedIn. How do they find you?
Just look me straight on LinkedIn. Or Pat Gross. So yes, Patricia Gross.
Yep.
Straight
Patricia
on LinkedIn
Gross, spelled
or Pat at the community.
GROSSE, right? And
or
email
Pat at the community entrepreneur. Yeah, Pat at the communityentrepreneur.com. And it is giving is receiving, and let somebody else pick up the check.
Yes.
So that's a teaser. That's the teaser.
Giving is receiving, and let someone else pick up the check. And you can find me, David M, at cygnusnlp.com. That's spelled CYGNUSNLP.com. Guys, gals, boys and girls, cats and dogs, whoever's watching, this has been fun. This has been a good one. I want you to remember to put everything you have into everything you do, because the best is yet to come. We'll see you next time.